So as you can see, you can get the best software in the world if your hardware fails. Yeah, you fail. Anyway, this is not gonna be an kind of the kind of talk you would hear on such a conference as this one, probably. First of all, it won't focus on any technology, not on technological level of Tizen, of the new Firefox OS. I won't talk about how you can run Mare on Raspberry Pi. However, I want to give you a completely different perspective of what smart devices can do in this world, in the world which strives for disruptive technology, and maybe give you a few examples which already work and which might change your view and understanding of what smart device actually really is. So without further ado, let me start by saying something about me. Shouldn't be so. Well, first of all, I didn't plan to get here at all. I mean, my schedule is kind of full of activities which do have a lot of to do with robotics, artificial intelligence, and similar stuff. But thanks to that guy over there, thanks to Philip, I got somehow persuaded to think of a crazy title for a crazy talk, and that's what you are hearing right now. But to give you a bit of background on me, I am a leader and the co-founder of the XLC team, which is a team of people, robotic enthusiasts who build stuff. Actually, it's mostly robots, and as you can see, we build them because we can. No other reason required. Other than that, I do other crazy stuff, such as help with sending Slovak stuff to space. Not sure how much of that you can actually see. It's something like let's call it a small satellite, which goes around the orbit, gets some data, and gets back, which might sound both funny and unrealistic and maybe like a waste of time, but in the end I might show you that it indeed makes sense to invest time even in activities like this. Other than that, I am part of the Foundation for Learning Equality, which does stuff like how many of you know Khan Academy? Okay, well, Khan Academy tries to deliver, how to put it, a good educational content from wide spectrum of areas to kids around the world, so that they don't have to actually sit at school and listen to someone if they want to learn, if they strive to learn. They can just look at the videos, look at some exercises. The nice part about it is that, well, internet allows you to learn pretty much anytime, anywhere, any place, and well, there is nothing like, okay, I didn't get what the teacher said in the last minute, let's rewind it and play it again in the real world. So, and what Khan Academy does is that this is all very nice. You got all the internet stuff, and you can build technologies around it, but here's the sad story. 70% of the world population, according to UNESCO, has got no internet connection. So what do we do about them? And that's where Foundation for Learning Equality comes in. We try to deliver this content, which is which is released under Creative Commons license, to all around the world, to rural areas from South Africa, India, South America, to places where they only get very expensive mobile connections. So what we do is that we set up kind of a server which downloads the data just once, and it streams it for other devices. Also trying to do it cheaper, but I'll get to that later. And kind of interesting thing happened this year. I got to the SmartDevCon organizers list. I still don't get this, but the guy who could explain it kind of vanished. So how to put it straight? Yeah, I'm an organizer. Yeah, I'm a speaker too. But what I do most of the time, and what I like enjoy doing whenever I could, is to help with the most awesome robotic competition out there, at least in this universe, which is called RoboCap. It's a competition in which robots, real robots, some of them resemble humans, some don't, compete against each other in football. And the goal of the competition is to have 11 robots ready by the end of 2050, so that these robots can play against the world champions of that year. The robots actually win, which is like an interesting goal, right? Like precisely the same way as flying cars were 30 years ago. But we still got 37 years to go. And from what I saw this year, well, we're getting there. Oh, we'll show you videos. You'll like them. I guarantee you that. But I shouldn't be speaking about myself here. I didn't aim for that. I should be speaking about this, about how smart devices shape the world of robotics. Well, there are many possible ways of answering the question. You can take it philosophically, you can take it from the point of view of technology, maybe sociology, pretty much anything you want. Well, I don't have any formal training in any of those. So what I can offer you is a point of view of someone who spent a few years building robots, building things that move, that do funny things, you tell them to, and who loves to see the revolution of the last maybe 3 to 5 years when we start to use smart devices in it. So in order to answer this question, how the smart devices shape the world of robotics, we need some sub-questions to be answered too. So here's the agenda for today. First of all, we need to define some terms, because otherwise we'll be talking about nothing, and I don't like that. Then we'll look at smart devices and robots in the past, in the present, and in the future. Following on that, we'll try to answer the question, and I am pretty sure there will be time for questions and answers. I would like, well, whenever I try to deliver some message, I'd like to put a rule in place, which is no questions should remain unanswered. So if there won't be time for your question, which might be true because we started a bit later, feel free to reach me out anytime, any place. I could tell you something about this stuff. So let's pause for a while and get the first term defined. Let's put it this way. Please raise your hand if you ever saw a robot. Whoever saw a robot here? Saw meaning by with your own eyes. Okay. Please keep your hand up if you ever saw a robot in the real world, meaning that not on a picture. How many of you did? Okay, okay, cool. How many of you ever touched a robot? Okay. How many of you actually know what a robot is? Yeah, that's the problem here. Even I do not know. I mean, I've been playing with the robots for like 5, maybe 6 years now, and first of all, there is no formal definition of robot. Second of all, I don't know how a robot, which you see in some kind of sci-fi movie, makes the different a different object to a robot, which then builds, say, cars in a factory. But thankfully, there are people who are trying to define this. And the first example will be Encyclopedia Britannica, which says that any automatically operated machine that replaces human effort, though it might not resemble human beings in appearance or perform functions in a human-like manner, should be a robot. Well, take a strike from the dictionary. Obviously, you can see that. There are other variations of this, like mechanical device that sometimes resembles a human and that is capable of performing a variety of often complex human tasks in command or by being programmed in advance. Yeah, very nice. Actually, these kind of definitions seem to lack one very important part, which is the human resemblance part. Meaning that an industrial robot might not seem like a robot to many people, but I don't want to really bore you, so let's move forward. This is the definition I'm mostly satisfied with, by Joseph Engelberger. I'm not sure if that's the correct pronunciation. That guy was a pioneer in industrial automation, kind of the father of robotics, and what he said is precisely what I would like you to think from this talk. I mean, we can't define the robot, but you definitely know when you see one, right? So if we then decided that robots can be defined, let's put another question in place. How many of you know where the robot originates from, like the word of robot?
From the Czech language.
Yeah.
There's a verb robotics.
Yeah, we'll get there precisely. It comes from the head of this guy. It's Karel Čapek. He first time used robots, the actual robot, or the word of robot, in his work, Russell's Universal Robotics. Very kind of a nice drama. Recommended actually. And the robot was derived from the Czech word robota. In Polish, it's probably something like that on the bottom. Some very established language experts in Slovakia say that it actually wasn't the proper Czech meaning of the word, meaning that what robota meant for Čapek, and given that he came up with this term in Turčianske Teplice, which is actually in Slovakia, the robots should be originating from Slovakia, but yeah, that's a matter of discussion. But generally, we can say that the robot originated from this area, which can make us pretty excited about it. I don't see Katowice there, well, whatever. But it's not only that they originated from this area. I mean, believe it or not, but in 2012, there was Eurostat, which is like the statistical, just like quizzes European Union gives to people. And here is the result, the Eurobarometer, I'm sorry. Experience of robots at home, at work, or elsewhere is most widespread in Slovakia, obviously, followed by Poland, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm not sure what else should I tell you. The robots are really like at home here. Other than that, I really promise that this is the first and the last slide, which will have blue background. Okay, moving on to the other part of the question. Let's ask ourselves the other question: what is a smart device? I mean, I was thinking a lot about this one, to be honest with you, and so I didn't know anybody else to, like anyone else to ask this question, like anyone who would be who would have more insight on this than the organizer of the SmartDevCon, right? So in one very short talk, Philip told me something like, you probably play with some smart devices or even build them. Well, to which I said the scientific define smart. Yeah, well, and the answer came, which was I won't define. So then I came to conclusion I really have to do. But according to SmartDevCon, here is what smart devices here is what SmartDevCon lists as smart devices. It should be internet tablets, smartphones, game consoles, connected TVs, IVIs. Yeah, sorry. Not this. Okay, whatever. Well, first of all, I never knew until I looked it up. I didn't know what the IVI was, to be completely honest with you, which might tell you something about how I get to this conference. But anyway, for me, a smart device was something like this: a BeagleBoard. Also, I do understand that smartphones are smart devices, but BeagleBoard was also a smart device for me. What it can do is that it's a computer on a chip, meaning that you can plug a SD card in it. It's got, this one has got, I believe, half a gigabyte of RAM, a gigabyte of gigahertz of processor speed. So it's kind of a device you can use when you build a robot. You can build upon, you can run your computations on, and that's why you call it smart, right? There are other variations of that, like BeagleBoard Black and Raspberry Pi and many other things. So I came to the conclusion: what actually connects all of these? We had a talk in the other room just before this one, which talked about the different operating systems, different environments, and when it all came together, it was web and Linux. Well, with robots, you don't connect that much to web because it's costly and not that easy to do many times. So what I came to is something like a statement like this: anything that runs Linux has to be smart. Then I figured that it might be a bit of an overstatement, and it might not be actually politically correct, so I put it like this way: anything that runs a Unix-like OS has to be smart. Okay, so we know what the robot is, or what it's not. We know what approximately a smart device is. So let's have a look at what smart devices meant in the last few years in robotics. Well, if we go back in time to the time when I started with smart devices in robotics, it was 2008. How many of you know what this picture shows? Yeah, go on. What is it? Yeah, precisely. G1 is the first, the first Android phone out there, which was sold to general public. Well, I remember it ran, I mean, Android 1.6 or something like that. It was very like 2 or 3 months after Google bought Android. and I remember how I wished I could my hands on one of those, but that wasn't the case at the time. But other than that, I was lucky enough to be on some other event which also featured interesting things. Let's see the video. Doesn't run. Well, I won't comment on that. When I saw it for the first time, it was like sci-fi coming to real world. Stuff that I never thought I'd see.
Kind of like us yesterday.
Could be. Yeah. Even 5 years ago, it resembled humans that much. None kind.
Tell me they won't be doing karaoke.
Probably once, but when they do something, when they do something, it really counts. Look at this. And it's a goal. So at the time I got really interested in robots in general. I believe that pretty much anyone who would see something like this would be. The problem was that this was out of my league at the time. What I found to be a smart device back then was this thing. Is this something? Probably not. What's this thing? I'm not sure how many of you have ever seen this. It's the Lego Mindstorms NXT kit, which is like an easy way to start with the robots, with the robotics, to build your own robot in, say, an hour, program it in another 10 minutes, and have fun. What it consists of is very obvious. It's got motors, it's got sensors, and most importantly, it's got the brick, which was, in my opinion, the smart device of the time, with the ultra awesome specs of like ARM processor, 64 kilobytes of RAM, and 256 kilobytes of flash memory. Well, it was the things you really want. It was the thing you want to run your computations of, to compute stuff on. Well, obviously, in the real world of robotics, it feels like a bit like this. But it seems that there are use cases for phones too, even though you might have lots of camera gear. So if we fast forward to the present, here's what changed. A lot, I would say, and from my point of view, the most important change is that we finally see robots do stuff that is actually useful. I mean, watch this. Yeah, well, it's not that easy to see how to fold. Yeah, well, you know what's the sad part of this video? It's it's 50 times faster. But yeah, we are slowly getting there. Thankfully, it's not the only thing that changed over the years. The omnipresence of devices, which we now call smart, made made it so easy for others to join this robotic revolution that they started to ask kind of these questions. Okay, let's look at the robot. What do we get there? We got some motors, we got some platform which it moves on, we got a bunch of sensors, we got the processing unit, right? And then we probably have some kind of network connection, right? Well, let's look at the smartphone of our time. We got processing unit there, we got sensors there, we got a way of connecting it, right? So the only thing we don't have is actually the platform and the motors, so that it can move. And many realized this, and what came out of it was this thing. It's the Romo Romo platform, let's call it that way. It's a kickstarted campaign by two engineers from Seattle who just want you to put your iPhone in a good use, and for another $100, or maybe it's more now, you got not only the iPhone, but you also got a robot. The nice thing about this is that you can use pretty much all the power of the device. So you can use the camera to recognize faces. Algorithms are all there. You can use GPS to get your locations, to get your location. You can use say proximity sensors. You can use gyros. You can use pretty much whatever that smartphone or the smart device actually has. It's not just that there will be solutions like this for iOS. There are other players of this game. This is SmartBot platform, which is like precisely the same thing. It just moves faster and it's a bit more expensive. Then there is the Oddworks platform. Yeah, it does seem odd. And some moved this whole idea to a completely different direction, so that if you get a platform, it might not be only a tool, only a toy, but maybe we could give it a extra use. So what they do is that they build something like this, which is r.bot platform, and what their aim with this is that you put something like this in a conference to say invitation party, and what this robot does is that it reaches out to people, gets their reaction through their webcam, the webcam on the tablet or any smartphone, and for instance, this way you get a very simple and convenient and also interesting way of getting feedback. Not only that, it can do many other things, such as saying, "Oh, welcome in this particular conference. We are so happy to see you here." Also, it's not smartphones only. The bigger screen you give it, the better it looks like. And I personally think that these really are the first steps of how the smart devices will change the robotic world. But then in the other areas, in the nearby areas, such as quadricopters, there are people who are experimenting with doing precisely the same thing, meaning that you alter the design of the quadricopter in such a way that you put a kind of cheap, ordinary, say, Android device there, so that you only need an app which will control the motors, do the object recognition stuff, use the sensors on it to make it fly nicely, and things like that. And what's the nice thing about it is that if you buy the sensors separately, I mean like GPS, some kind of Wi-Fi shield, some kind of gyroscope, some kind of accelerometers. It's gonna cost a lot. If you got a cheap Android device for say $80 or $100, it's still much cheaper. And well, if it breaks down, you don't have to look at which part it really was. You just have 5 or 6 of these devices and exchange one to the other. On the other side of the spectrum, on the smart devices, which we probably should call more embeddable, not smart, there has been some movement too. Say you got a Raspberry Pi, and say you buy a few parts, and what you get out of it is a robot like this. They call it Rapiro, and what it essentially is just a kit around your own Raspberry Pi, which costs $35. It can move around. It can do all kind of very interesting and useful stuff, and yeah, it can do omnipresence too, if you really want it. Well, so long for that. And building things like this on smart devices teaches you lessons which are then applicable in all sorts and all ranges of other technological challenges. Say, for instance, if you still recall this picture of the balloon which has been sent to space. It's very convenient to use Raspberry Pi there, for instance, or to put a mobile phone there, so that if this thing gets back to Earth, it just sends you an SMS with your with its GPS coordinates, so that you don't really need to buy extra special devices to reach it out. And again, since it's not that expensive, which is the nice part of it, if it really breaks down, which happens, then you just exchange it for another one. Another example might be the KA Lite, delivering Khan Academy to rural parts of the world. The thing there is that if you think about, say, Cambodia, where they get problems to buy a feature phone, how do you expect them to buy a server which could which could withstand the load of, say, another 50 computers in a normal school? Well, it's gonna be expensive. They don't have money for that. They don't want to invest in it. So what Foundation for Learning Equality does is that we provide them with Raspberry Pis, which have got storages, like the ordinary USB storage connected to it, and then we stream these videos and this content through kind of internal networks, so that they very easily just get the content, don't have to download it many times. They can work on their exercises offline. And what the governments sometimes do, which is the case of India, for instance, they invested in, I'm not sure about the name, so I probably will just leave it like that. They invested in tablets for every child, so that any child gets a tablet. They get to play with it. They get to see the videos around it, and well, it really changes the way these kids learn in general. So that was some examples. Now let me show you what really changed in those 5 years. Hope you will like it. Seems like this is from this year, and as far as I can tell, the robots has gotten a whole lot of smarter. Wow. Yeah, yeah. It was tactically better to do that, probably. Not that much. So, so seeing this, it always brings me to the point when I want to think about, well, if we got things like this today, what will we have in the future? I mean, what actually will be the future of robots, maybe connected with smart devices? Well, I personally believe it will be about 3 things. First of all, it will be very, very interesting. Meaning that just by looking at how the technology was evolved 5 years ago, and how much you can do with pretty much no budget at all, what you can afford with just your, say, pocket money, with stuff like Raspberry Pi being available, and by just learning stuff because you like it, you can do many things no one would ever dare to say you would be able to. So that's the first thing. It's gonna be really, really interesting. Then I believe it's gonna be ubiquitous. Ubiquitous in a sense that right now we probably all agree that like smart devices, especially smartphones, are really everywhere. We saw lots of numbers on that, like how many new devices are being activated, stuff like that. Yeah, it's true about the smart devices, but not so much about the robots. So the next change I expect is that many new kind of very cheap ways of turning smart device into kind of a smart robot will appear, and it's gonna be really ubiquitous and pretty much anywhere around us. And the third and very important thing is gonna be interconnected. What I mean by that is that suppose we got lots of smartphones and lots of these platforms where they can act as robots. Well, then if we really want to live with such a huge amount of robots, the convenient way of doing it would be like talk to each other of them in a way they will understand that. And that's very, very, very similar to what Internet of Things is trying to do. So I believe that we are heading towards the World Wide Web of robots, in which every robot will understand some kind of a protocol in the very similar way like every web server understands the HTTP protocol. And that way, what the future will probably look like will be that you just take your smartphone, look at the list of available robots, pick one, connect to one, and say, okay, boy, I want a coffee. Get me one. And what I mean by the future already being in here is stuff like this. It's Arduino Yaun, I believe. I'm not sure about the pronunciation. It's been released like 2 days ago. And what it is that it combines the being smart with being able to get low-level stuff done easily. So what you got is a real Arduino, very easy microprocessor processing unit, And then you got the Linux port, which runs on well, you can't compare it to any real Linux distribution, but it runs a distribution which is capable of connecting to to wireless networks. So this device itself can be attached to, say, temperature sensor, and it can stream that to your wireless network from wherever in the world. You can just look at it and say, okay, this is okay, it's not that cold at home, let's turn on some, I don't know, some heating or something like that. What's important about this, at least for me, is that it costs around 50 euros. So even though there have been solutions in the age of in the age before the smartphones and similar things, they were extremely expensive. I mean, for a hobbyist of any kind, it was pretty much impossible to get hold of processing unit that could actually be used. And thanks to smart devices and smartphones in particular, the price has gotten so down that we can see things like this, and we can see things like Raspberry Pi coming up. What I mean by that is that, well, say I got a phone like this I actually bought from Poland, the Firefox OS phone. It cost me like 80 euros, and well, I might never use it for actual Firefox OS development. First and foremost, because I don't have time for that. But if I look at the thing it's got its inside, I mean the GPS and sensor and stuff like that, it's worth thinking and probably putting time into actually hacking this device in such a way that you will be able to use it as a processing, as a computational unit for any of your robotic application. So that's the last thing. This was the future is gonna look like. Probably very, very cheap devices, which will turn out to be the basic blocks of very, very cheap robots, which will then be very, very, well, everywhere. So to conclude this whole thing, I would like to say that the robots are coming, and especially if you are in app development, I suggest that you at least think about this stuff. I mean, there are very many exciting things to deal with if you build apps for like new technologies, new very interesting technologies. But the mobile world is at its top, at a fluctuation point, and well, I don't mean to say it by the way, but it's probably gonna go down, and maybe it might be time to have a look into how those things got started. Maybe to just try out to connect to some cheap Arduino or connect to some very cheap Raspberry Pi, and see how that might work in some of your interesting applications. If not for anything else, then just for the fun of it, because I can tell you that it's really a nice experience, and that you won't regret it. So let's end up with this. The robots are coming, and it's probably gonna be sooner than you thought. Thank you very much. That's all from me.